Hi there. Today I'm going to talk about how to get started with GoToSocial. Now, GoToSocial is quite a compelling option for what's called a solo instance. So people are really familiar with Mastodon. Mastodon is a microblogging service on the fediverse. It's the biggest thing out there on the fediverse at this point in time. But there are some downsides to Mastodon when it comes to hosting for yourself. It's fairly resource intensive for a single user instance. If you have hundreds of people, you get to all share the burden, and per user it works out quite cheap. But if you just have one user on there, or maybe a family, some people find it a bit pricey. GoToSocial, it offers a Mastodon-like experience, but it's more cut down and less fully featured, focused on giving you just what you need to have a microblogging service on the fediverse. So the things to keep in mind with GoToSocial, it doesn't have an app, so you don't have like GoToSocial in the App Store that you can download and use. Instead, it works with existing Mastodon client app. It appears to the app like it is Mastodon. So you can download the Mastodon app, point it at your GoToSocial instance, and use it like it's Mastodon, which is pretty smart, I think. No need to reinvent the wheel. The other thing to keep in mind is it doesn't have a public timeline. This is the GoToSocial instance for Canadian Civil. And this is what it looks like. Nothing. This is the Mastodon instance for Canadian Civil. It's got a full-on public timeline. And the thing is, GoToSocial, one of the things it saves resources on is it doesn't generate and create this web page. There's lots of other differences, but those are the two things that kind of catch people. I think GoToSocial is a great option for a solo instance or an instance for just a small family. It's also a good way to look into the fediverse and have a bookmark almost in the fediverse, so you can have yourself set up with an account that people can follow. And it's always possible to migrate afterwards. You can, if you decide, I'd like some of those Mastodon features, you're capable of migrating off GoToSocial and onto Mastodon. There's a lot of good things about it, but if you're on this video, you've probably already realized that you're interested in trying GoToSocial out. And you can on FediHost with a 7-day trial. Check it out, see if you like it. So at the time of recording, GoToSocial is actually still a product that we have coming soon, but it's going to be publicly launched by the time you're watching this video. So if you're wanting to add GoToSocial, you need to log into your FediHost account, or you can choose it on the pricing page. Click on New Service, click on GoToSocial, and at the time of recording, we don't have pricing up for this, but you'll see your pricing options there. I'd recommend just starting off with the most basic plan, seeing if it's running smoothly. If you find that it's not, you can always upgrade later. Hit select. And then you have to choose your domain. So if you are really just like wanting to fiddle around and see what GoToSocial looks like, but aren't super serious about it at this point, you can always use one of the existing FediHost domains. So you could create a test instance, select that domain, log in to it, have a look, check to see that it works. And then once you're serious, you can shift over to having a custom domain. I wouldn't recommend staying with a FediHost domain because this locks you into having to use a FediHost domain. If you're going out there and you're kind of sharing links to follow you, and your username would end up being username at something.fedihost.io. Problem is, if you want to move at some point to a different hosting service, you're kind of stuck because you've got this FediHost domain. You've locked yourself in, which is not actually what we want. It's not why Victor and I got into business. So I would always recommend setting up a custom domain. Now, you've got two options with a custom domain. You can go and buy a domain. You might not have one already. You just, you're like, oh, I'd like to get my family set up. So you go buy a domain. You go to some company, let's say web names. You want to be a Canadian. And you go, the awesomefamily.ca. And you go and you add this to your cart and you buy theawesomefamily.ca. Great, that's one way to do it. What more often is the case is a subdomain. So in this case, the Discount Bucket Warehouse, which is a bucket retailer based in Canada, is looking to get itself set up on a cheaper microblogging platform. So they could type in Discount Bucket Warehouse as their domain, but the problem is there's already a website at that address, right? So what they want to do is set up something that's a little bit more like what Consultatron's done. So Consultatron, they have a website on their domain at consultatron.com, but they have m.consultatron for where they have their Mastodon instance. They have video.consultatron, that's where they have their completely empty PeerTube. Consultatron is not doing a great job on the PeerTube right now. So similarly, Discount Bucket Warehouse, they want to set up GTS, GoToSocial.discountbucketwarehouse.com. Over on Create New Service, you can add a subdomain to any domain that you already own. In this case, GTS for GoToSocial. And over here, you'll see the DNS settings are updated with what you need to put into your DNS provider. So if you've bought a domain on, web names or whatever, or if you already own a domain, inside that panel, you'll see some settings called DNS settings that you can change, typically. You might have to hunt around a little bit to find them, but almost guarantee you that they're there somewhere. DNS name server might be what it's called. If you have a hunt around, you'll find something that looks like this. You'll have this table of records, DNS records, and it'll have something along the lines of host name or name, value, alias, record, something like that. And when you see this, you'll know you're in the right spot. For me, I'm using DigitalOcean, which actually isn't a domain name provider, but it is the place where the Discount Bucket Warehouse's website is located, and it is managing the DNS. So over on FediHost, we're basically wanting to add these records to DigitalOcean. So type CNAME, all right? Create new record. CNAME. Host name. Host name. Let's copy this and paste it in. Is an alias of. And you'll see there's no alias of here. And this is because DNS, the terminology kind of changes. It's alias, target, value. You'll see there's an inconsistency between kind of interfaces. But through a process of elimination, you can pretty much always figure out what's actually supposed to be there. Because you look at the fields and you're like, well, TTL 600. And you're like, well, TTL's there, 600. So the only record that's left is this one. Now, you might be tempted to hit create record right now if you have an interface like mine. But this is where there's a kind of thing that can catch you. You can see over here that the host name, we pasted in, it's fine. But if you look at what it's resolved to gts.discountbucketwarehouse.com.discountbucketwarehouse.com. What's going on is these DNS settings are kind of namespaced for us by DigitalOcean. It's already assuming that whatever is in here is then followed by discountbucketwarehouse.com. So if we delete this bit, you'll see it's now resolved to what we actually want, gts.discountbucketwarehouse.com. So if we hit select domain here, there's an error. But if we create this record, and we go back, you'll see it now goes through. It can take a while to update if you've already polled the record. Just give it a moment. That field, the TTL field that we set to 600, that's how many seconds before it refreshes. So if it doesn't go through immediately, wait 600 seconds and then update it. Here we go. Going to create the instance here. And here it is, because Consultatron are managing Discount Bucket Warehouse as one of their clients. You can see it here in the list of Consultatron things. So you can see here, there's gts.discountbucketwarehouse, and there's the little GoToSocial logo, and it needs some further setup. So click there, and these are the options for GoToSocial. There's a decision to make at this point on whether to use web fingers or not. I would recommend not using them. I'll do a video on how to do web finger redirection for GoToSocial. There's actually already one for Mastodon if you want to check it out. It's really similar. And there's also an episode of the FediHost podcast where Victor, the CTO, and I go over web fingers and whether we think they're a good idea or not. These days, I'm kind of more and more like, I don't think it's a great idea to set up a web finger, just with the way that the fediverse is, unrolling. But check out the podcast episode if you'd like some more details on that. Web fingers basically let you shorten your domain so that it broadcasts out to the fediverse without the subdomain. Anyway, if you really want to have a short domain and you don't want the subdomain, check out those videos and then make a decision on whether you think web fingers are worthwhile. This is the moment that you have to make that call. So, want to make sure that you're informed on the pluses and minuses of web fingers. And if you want to go ahead with them, power to you. All right, and then you choose in here your email and username for your admin account. So often it's kind of good to use a username that's not a name that you would actually use. Same goes for Mastodon. So like owner is a good name that works on Mastodon and GoToSocial. You might just call like instance admin, that sort of thing, because that just lets you kind of separate the account that kind of is the king account that you probably don't actually use, but you could if you wanted to as a super admin from the account that you use every day. And then it moves out of setup needed, provisions for a while, and now the GoToSocial instance is set up. And we can access it at GoToSocial.discountbucketwarehouse.com. There we go. And inside the panel here, you can see your login details for that admin account, the username and the password, which you can use to control the GoToSocial instance. You can log into it using the Mastodon app. It's probably the best way to administer it. And at the address /admin, you'll find you're able to log in to the authorization page and change the instance settings. Anyway, that's all for a later tutorial, but that should get you started with GoToSocial. Let me know how you go with it and what you think of GoToSocial. We're really excited to be adding this service. It's been quite a long time that we've been hosting and experimenting with it ourselves in-house, so we're kind of excited to see what people make of it out there. Anyway, thanks for watching, and see you next time.